People love to pretend that relationships are complicated, but they are not. What's complicated is the way we avoid the truth. We ignore signals that are right in front of us because we're scared of what it means if we actually acknowledge them. We think we're protecting the relationship when in reality we're sacrificing ourselves. And there's nothing noble about trading self-respect for temporary connection. The truth is always there, you're just not looking at it. So let's talk about the signs, not the signs about someone's past, but the signs about someone's impact on your life. Because the fastest way to change your future is to stop lying to yourself about your present. One of the biggest signs you're avoiding the truth is inconsistency. People tell you who they are every day through their actions, not their promises, not their potential, not their apologies. If someone shows up only when it's convenient, if they're hot one day and cold the next, if they're emotionally available only when they want something, you're not in a relationship, you're in a cycle, and cycles don't build your future, they drain your capacity. Consistency is alignment, inconsistency is manipulation. And the moment you stop romanticizing chaos is the moment your life gets quieter, stronger, and way more powerful. Another sign is when you keep lowering the bar. You started with standards, you had boundaries, you had a vision of what you wanted. Then you met someone and suddenly you're negotiating non-negotiables. You're accepting bare, minimum effort and calling it compromise. You're justifying behavior you would have warned your friends about. Lowering your standards doesn't make someone stay. It just makes you lose sight of who you are. Your standards are not demands, they are filters. And filters are there to protect your life from the wrong energy, not to please someone who doesn't even respect what you bring to the table. A third sign is emotional exhaustion. Pay attention to how you feel after you interact with someone. Do you feel anxious, confused, or insecure more often than you feel grounded, confident, and valued? That's not chemistry. That's your nervous system screaming for help. Healthy relationships don't drain you, they stabilize you. The people who belong in your life don't create emotional turbulence, they create emotional clarity. And if clarity scares you, then maybe the problem isn't the other person. Maybe you've gotten used to chaos because chaos is what you've been conditioned to tolerate. Another powerful sign is when your goals start shrinking. You used to think big. You used to push yourself. You used to have momentum. Then someone walked into your life and suddenly you're playing small. You're quieter. You're less focused. You're choosing short-term emotional comfort over long-term growth. Any relationship that costs you your ambition is a liability. And you never owe anyone your potential. You owe yourself the life you're capable of building. If someone isn't pushing you forward, they're pulling you backward. There is no neutral position when it comes to influence. A fifth sign is when you're doing all the emotional labor. You're the one who explains, fixes, soothes, repairs, adjusts, forgives, and initiates change. You're the engine keeping the connection alive. But relationships are not supposed to feel like you're carrying another adult on your back. They should feel like two people rowing in the same direction with aligned energy. When one person is always the emotional caretaker, what you actually have is imbalance disguised as compatibility. And imbalance always collapses. Whether today or later, it breaks. Another sign is the lack of accountability. If you're dealing with someone who never owns their behavior, someone who flips the blame, changes the narrative, or gets defense, if every time you bring up an issue, you are not building a partnership, you're managing a liability. Accountability is the foundation of trust. Without it, you're not building anything. You're just surviving someone else's avoidance, and survival is not love, it's self-abandonment. The last sign is when your intuition is louder than your logic. You know when something is off, you feel it before you can explain it, but too often you silence yourself because you don't want the truth to be true. Intuition doesn't yell, it whispers, and when you ignore enough whispers, they eventually turn into consequences. Your intuition is not paranoid, it's protective, And the moment you start listening to it again is the moment your life starts aligning again. People always say actions speak louder than words, but very few actually pay attention to it. You hear someone tell you how much they care, how committed they are, how different this time is, but none of that matters if their behavior doesn't align with their words. Life isn't built on promises. It's built on what shows up consistently every single day without exception. When someone is inconsistent, it's not just inconvenient or frustrating. It's a red flag screaming that their energy, attention, and priorities aren't aligned with yours. The moment you start romanticizing inconsistency, the moment you forgive excuses that would otherwise feel unacceptable, you step into a cycle that chips away at your confidence, your clarity, and your vision for the life you want. Consistency is about showing up. It's about actions that don't require reminders, apologies, or negotiations. It's about a pattern that proves reliability and trustworthiness. You don't need someone who only appears when they want something or when it's convenient for them. You don't need someone whose interest fluctuates based on their mood, the weather, or some external factor that has nothing to do with you. If someone truly values you, they will find ways to show it, to prioritize you, to make you feel secure without forcing you to constantly question their intentions. That is the difference between a relationship that builds you up and one that slowly erodes your sense of self-worth. Too many people mistake charm, intensity, or drama for proof of love. They confuse passion for commitment. They excuse behavior that, if reversed, would feel completely unacceptable. They ignore the small, repeated moments that actually matter, like showing up on time, keeping promises, communicating clearly, and being emotionally present. Inconsistency is not a test you pass by tolerating it. It's a warning sign you ignore at your own peril. It's the difference between investing in someone who is capable of sustaining love versus someone who only dabbles in it when convenient. And dabbing in love is not love, it's entertainment, it's distraction, it's a form of self-deception that keeps you tied to someone who will never meet your needs fully. When you start paying attention to consistency, you start seeing patterns you previously overlooked. You see who makes excuses versus who takes responsibility. You see who communicates when it matters versus who disappears at critical moments. You see who respects your time and boundaries versus who constantly bends them for their own convenience. That clarity is liberating. It allows you to make decisions not from fear, not from loneliness, not from hope that someone will change, but from an unshakable understanding of what's actually happening. You stop rationalizing, apologizing, and compromising on things that matter. You reclaim your time, your energy, and your focus. The truth is, inconsistency is not mysterious, it's intentional. People reveal who they are through patterns of behavior long before words catch up. The sooner you recognize that, the sooner you stop wasting your energy on someone who isn't fully present, fully invested, and fully capable of showing up for you. And the moment you refuse to excuse inconsistency, that's the moment you create space for someone whose actions align perfectly with their words, whose presence is unwavering, and whose love is visible, tangible, and real every single day. Consistency is power, and recognizing it is liberation. Too many people confuse compromise with surrender. They convince themselves that lowering their standards is an act of love, a sign of maturity, or a necessary step to keep someone in their life. But the truth is, every time you accept less than what you deserve, you are silently eroding your own value. Standards are not rigid demands designed to punish or control someone else. They are boundaries that protect your energy, your self-respect, and the trajectory of your life. When you start negotiating non-negotiables just to maintain a connection, you are teaching yourself and the other person that mediocrity is acceptable, that effort is optional, and that your own vision for the future can be compromised for temporary comfort. You started with clarity about what you wanted. You had lines drawn in the sand, things you would and wouldn't tolerate, qualities you knew were essential for a healthy, meaningful relationship. Then someone enters your life and suddenly those standards begin to blur. You rationalize behavior that would have previously set off alarms. You excuse repeated mistakes, inconsistencies, or lack of effort because you're afraid of being alone, afraid of confrontation, or simply desperate to hold on to the connection. That's not compromise, that's surrender. That's letting someone else's lack of alignment dictate the terms of your life, and it always comes at a cost. The cost is invisible at first. You start ignoring small signals, subtle red flags, and minor betrayals. You silence the part of yourself that used to demand respect, fairness, and honesty. You convince yourself that these adjustments are temporary, that the other person will grow, or that the relationship is good enough for now. But temporary compromises have a way of becoming permanent patterns. You stop noticing how your energy is being drained, how your confidence is quietly diminishing, and how the excitement and ambition you once carried begin to fade. Every time you lower your standards, you chip away at yourself, worth, and the life you are capable of creating. Healthy relationships are not about bending endlessly to meet someone else's deficiencies. They are about alignment, finding someone whose energy, ambition, values, and vision complement yours. Alignment does not require you to shrink yourself, water down your expectations, or tolerate behaviors that undermine your peace of mind. Standards are not negotiable because they are the blueprint for the life you want to build. Accepting less does not make someone love you more. It simply teaches them how little effort they need to invest to keep you in their orbit. The moment you recognize the difference between compromise and lowering your standards is the moment you reclaim your agency. You start making decisions from a place of power rather than fear. You stop rationalizing behavior that would have previously seemed unacceptable. You begin to understand that your value is not contingent on someone else's approval or presence. It's built into every boundary you maintain, every standard you refuse to negotiate, and every expectation you honor for yourself. By holding firm to your standards, you attract the people who are capable of showing up fully, who match your energy, and who elevate your life instead of diminishing it. Standards are filters that protect your emotional and mental energy. They are not walls designed to keep people out. They are mechanisms to ensure that only the right people, the ones who are capable of alignment and contribution, are allowed into your inner circle. And the moment you stop compromising what you deserve is the moment you stop settling for anything less than the extraordinary life you are meant to lead. One of the clearest signs that a relationship is out of alignment is how it affects your emotional energy. If you leave every interaction feeling drained, anxious, or uncertain, you are not experiencing love or partnership. You are surviving a constant emotional treadmill that benefits no one except the person who is taking from you. Too often, people mistake emotional turbulence for intensity, excitement, or passion. They convince themselves that if it feels dramatic, it must be meaningful. The truth is, healthy relationships don't leave you exhausted. They leave you energized, grounded, and confident. Emotional exhaustion is a silent killer of self, worth, and clarity, and ignoring it is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself in someone else's chaos. Pay attention to how you feel after conversations, texts, or interactions. Are you second-guessing what was said? Do you feel anxious, insecure, or constantly on edge? That tension is not coincidence. It is your nervous system signaling that your environment, the relationship itself, is not safe or nourishing. Relationships are supposed to stabilize you, not destabilize you. They should be a place where your growth is supported, where your thoughts are respected, and where your emotions are met with care and accountability. When someone repeatedly leaves you in a state of uncertainty, they are not challenging you. They are controlling the narrative and keeping you tethered to the drama they manufacture. Emotional labor is another critical factor. If you are the one doing all the thinking, all the planning, all the comforting, and all the repairing, it's a warning sign. Relationships are supposed to be partnerships, not performances in which one person constantly plays caretaker while the other remains passive or irresponsible. When one person carries the emotional weight, the balance is broken, and resentment inevitably grows. You start questioning your value, your instincts, and your expectations, because constantly giving without receiving reciprocity changes your perception of what is normal. And what becomes normal in a toxic pattern is rarely healthy. It is exhausting, confusing, and unsustainable. Another layer of emotional exhaustion comes from unpredictability. People who are inconsistent, manipulative, or dismissive create tension without ever taking responsibility for it. You are constantly reacting rather than acting, constantly adjusting rather than thriving. Your life becomes a series of responses to someone else's choices instead of a proactive journey toward your goals. That is not a partnership. It is a drain on your time, energy, and potential. The relationship that demands your mental and emotional bandwidth without offering stability in return is a relationship that will cost you more than it gives. Healthy connections amplify energy. They create a sense of safety, clarity, and support. They allow you to show up fully without fear of judgment, manipulation, or dismissal. They make your life easier, not harder. Emotional exhaustion is the body and mind's natural signal that something is misaligned. Ignoring it in the hope that love or attachment will eventually make it worth it is a form of self-deception. The faster you recognize emotional fatigue as a legitimate and serious warning, the faster you protect your boundaries, reclaim your energy, and redirect it toward people, projects, and goals that genuinely elevate your life. Your feelings are not optional, they are data. Every pang of doubt, anxiety, or heaviness is a message that needs to be acknowledged. When you start honoring your emotional responses instead of dismissing them, you stop tolerating relationships that drain you. You create space for connections that fuel your confidence, align with your vision, and enhance your life rather than deplete it. Emotional exhaustion is not a normal part of love. It is a sign that your energy is being mismanaged, and the moment you recognize it, you reclaim your power and your peace. Ambition is not just about career or money. It's about the life you want to create, the standards you hold for yourself, and the energy you bring to every relationship. One of the clearest warning signs that a connection is toxic or misaligned is when your goals, your drive, and your momentum begin to shrink. You used to think big, you used to take risks, you used to feel unstoppable. Then someone enters your life and subtly, almost imperceptibly at first, your dreams start to feel smaller. You question yourself more often, hesitate before taking action, and unconsciously prioritize their comfort over your growth. A relationship that costs you your ambition is not support. It's a slow form of surrender disguised as love. When you are with someone who diminishes your drive, it usually doesn't happen overtly. They may not tell you that your goals are too big or that your ambition is inconvenient. Often it's a pattern of subtle behaviors, criticism disguised as concern, disinterest in your achievements, jealousy of your focus, or pressure to conform to a lifestyle that doesn't align with your vision. Over time, these small erosions compound. You start asking yourself, am I asking too much? Am I moving too fast? Is my drive a problem? And without realizing it, you adjust your goals to fit the comfort of someone else rather than the potential you know is within yourself. That is the moment ambition dies not from failure, but from tolerating the wrong influence. Healthy relationships amplify your energy, ambition, and vision. The right partner does not feel threatened by your goals. They do not demand that you shrink yourself, your dreams, or your aspirations to make them feel secure. Instead, they celebrate your wins, challenge you to be better, and create an environment where growth is expected, not questioned. Alignment in relationships is not just about chemistry or attraction. It is about shared energy, shared vision, and shared willingness to elevate each other. If a relationship leaves you compromising your goals, it is not a partnership. It is a restraint, and the sooner you see it, the sooner you can reclaim your power. Another subtle aspect is distraction. Some people drain your focus without ever intending to hurt you. They monopolize your mental energy with drama, neediness, or emotional turbulence. Your attention, once reserved for strategic thinking and personal growth, is diverted toward managing someone else's unpredictability. You start losing track of your priorities, putting your progress on pause to accommodate someone else's instability. Momentum is a fragile thing. It can be destroyed by the wrong influence faster than it can be rebuilt. That's why protecting your goals is non-negotiable. The key is awareness. Notice when your excitement for life, your productivity, or your boldness begins to wane after interactions with someone. That feeling is a red flag, not a coincidence. Relationships should be additive, not subtractive. They should fuel your momentum, not drain it. You owe it to yourself to preserve your ambition, your drive, and your focus. If someone consistently makes you feel smaller, less capable, or hesitant to pursue what you know you can achieve, it is not love holding you back. It is misalignment. The moment you recognize that your ambition is non-negotiable, you reclaim your life. You stop adjusting your goals to make others comfortable. You stop shrinking to fit someone else's limitations. You prioritize people and relationships that elevate you, challenge you, and inspire growth. And when your energy, vision, and momentum are protected, every step you take toward your goals becomes sharper, faster, and unstoppable. Your intuition is not a quirk of personality or an optional voice you can ignore. It is your most powerful internal compass, a radar finely tuned to detect truth, misalignment, and danger long before your logic can catch up. Too often, people dismiss the whispers of their own instincts, convincing themselves that doubt is irrational, overthinking, or paranoia. The reality is the opposite. Your intuition is rarely wrong. It is the culmination of your experiences, observations, and subconscious calculations, quietly alerting you to patterns that your conscious mind may not yet see. Ignoring it is not ignorance, it is self-sabotage, and the consequences are almost always more painful than facing the truth early. Intuition doesn't yell, it whispers. It's the feeling in your stomach when something is off, the tension in your chest when a situation feels misaligned, the quiet voice that says pause. When logic is urging you to continue, people often silence this voice because it conflicts with desire, hope, or fear of confrontation. They tell themselves, maybe I'm overreacting, or I'll give it another chance. That hesitation feels safe in the moment, but in reality, it delays inevitable confrontation with the truth. The longer you ignore intuition, the more your energy, clarity, and confidence are eroded by situations you could have avoided. Your intuition is also a signal of self-respect. It reflects your internal standards and boundaries, translating them into an almost immediate awareness of whether someone or something aligns with your values. When you start doubting yourself or overriding your instincts to accommodate someone else's narrative, you are prioritizing their version of reality over your own. That's a dangerous habit because it slowly trains your mind to tolerate what is unacceptable. Ignoring intuition is not just a momentary misstep. It is a pattern that leads to repeated compromises, emotional exhaustion, and disempowerment. One of the most common signs people ignore intuition is rationalization. You find reasons to justify feelings that are trying to protect you. You think maybe I'm reading it wrong, or maybe I'm too sensitive, but sensitivity is not weakness. It is data. Your intuition is processing hundreds of subtle cues you may not consciously register. Tone, micro-expressions, timing, effort, and consistency, and distilling them into a feeling. When you dismiss it, you are dismissing valuable information about alignment, compatibility, and character. Over time, ignoring these signals trains you to tolerate instability, manipulation, and disrespect. The power of intuition grows the moment you start listening. When you honor that quiet inner voice, you make decisions from a place of clarity rather than confusion. You recognize patterns before they escalate. You act proactively instead of reactively. The right people, situations, and opportunities start to reveal themselves more clearly because you are attuned to what is genuinely aligned versus what is a distraction or drain. Intuition is not a vague feeling. It is a sophisticated early warning system designed to protect your energy, guide your actions, and preserve your trajectory. Trusting your intuition is an act of self-empowerment. It requires courage, discipline, and honesty. It asks you to step out of hope, desire, and fear and into reality. When you start acting on intuition consistently, you stop tolerating misalignment. You stop rationalizing what isn't working. You stop compromising your standards, your emotional well-being, and your ambition. Your inner voice becomes a guide, your life becomes sharper, and your ability to navigate relationships, opportunities, and challenges elevates exponentially. Ignoring it is optional, but living fully and powerfully without it is impossible. Every relationship, every connection, and every interaction leaves a mark on your life. The truth is rarely hidden. It's always visible if you're willing to pay attention to consistency, standards, emotional energy, ambition, and intuition. Protecting your boundaries is not selfish, it's essential. Holding firm to your values is not rigidity, it's power. Listening to yourself, honoring your instincts, and refusing to compromise on what truly matters ensures that the people and experiences you allow into your life elevate you rather than drain you. Life is too short to settle for anything less than alignment, respect, and growth, and the moment you recognize these signs and act on them, you reclaim your energy, your clarity, and your future. Thank you for taking the time to reflect, to open your mind, and to commit to honoring yourself at the highest level. Your journey toward clarity and empowerment starts with awareness, and every choice you make from this point forward shapes the quality of your life. Keep observing, keep trusting, and never compromise on the life you deserve.